But what words of encouragement do you have for the citizens of Georgia who may feel as if no matter what they do, if they vote early or they bring friends with them, it won't have an impact on the outcome?
I have proven that
Mhm.
it matters. In 2018, I didn't become governor by 54,723 votes.
That's two concerts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's two concerts. And there were enough people. Now, there were a lot of people who tried to vote who weren't allowed to participate in our elections, but there were a lot more people who didn't think their voices mattered.
Mm,
And it's a truism, but if your voice didn't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to stop you from being
that's
heard.
true.
But the other part of it is, and it's a legitimate critique. For a lot of folks, they've never seen their lives change. It didn't really matter who got elected because their lives stayed the same. You've never had anyone like me running for office. What I like to describe is not what I did before I ran, but when I didn't win, I still made sure that I helped pay off the medical debt of 68,000 Georgians, especially people who wanted to start their own businesses, because we know that medical debt often stops you from being able to do anything. I made sure that people got access to the COVID vaccine. I started at a company that was moving millions of dollars to small businesses. I made sure that if you were on EBT when you weren't getting the stimulus checks, that we got $1,000 check written to a bunch of families across Georgia who weren't getting the money they needed. That's what I do when I don't have the job. Imagine what I would do if I had the job. So I'm not asking people to forget what they know. I'm asking them to believe what they see. The current governor reopened the state, but he also passed a law making it illegal for anyone who got harmed, any essential worker, to sue their boss for not having protection. We have one of the highest rates of death from COVID in the nation. And so, yes, some people benefited, but most of our businesses didn't get a dime of PPP. He got money. He gave a $694 million contract to his friends for giving him money in his campaign. My mission has been and always will be, how do you invest in people to make sure they thrive? Because I've been at the bottom and I don't want to be there, and I don't think anyone else needs to be there. If you're willing to work for it, my mission is to work with you, but I've got to get the job first. And that's why I need folks to show up.
Let me ask you this: something that's very hot in the news. President Biden's plan to get rid of student loans for $10,000 if you make under $125,000 a year, and $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients for the same income threshold. Kind of controversial, of course. Some people are saying that, they don't want to pay for somebody else's college education, is government handouts, different things of that nature. Some people are saying that it's not enough money. It's not fully really going to impact Black America in the way that it should, because it's not enough. What is your thoughts on the student loan crisis, and what is your thoughts on what he proposed, and what are some ideas that you have?
So I begin with my faith values. I don't begrudge another person's blessing. That $10,000, that $20,000 can be the difference between someone else's child being able to get an education and rise out of poverty. That can be the difference between someone being able to take care of their family member who has cancer. I want people to be able to have those blessings. And I paid off my student loans. I paid them off in January of 2019. I know the relief I felt, but I also know the burden I carried for years when I indeed had to make choices between paying my student loans and taking care of my family. And so I don't begrudge a person getting access to those resources. It, of course, is not enough because we have a broken system in this country. When my parents were going through college, even though they weren't able to fully leverage it because they grew up during Jim Crow, the ability to go to college was not the difference between your future and not having a future, but it also wasn't mortgaging your future. And so we have to tackle the broken nature of student debt in the United States. But this is an important start, and it is more than we had the day before, and that's critical to me. But what we have to layer on top of it is the fact that for many Black and from a lot of Black folks, that money is going to matter because we are more likely to finish to be in debt but not have the degree to go with it. And so while it is not enough, it is more than we have, and it is substantial because we're also more likely to qualify for the 20,000 than the 10,000 because more of our people are in that bracket where we were also relying on Pell Grants. And I say we because I was. But what I want to do for Georgia is layer on top of that by making sure we're not creating a deeper hole. And that's why I want to restore free technical college in the state of Georgia. Once the Hope Scholarship was created, between the creation of the Hope Scholarship 2011, technical college was free. Because we had to save the Hope Scholarship from economic ruin, we had to decrease the award for what was called the Hope Grant. But we now have $1 billion sitting in an unrestricted, unreserved fund that could be used right now to do exactly what we used to do. And that helps a lot of Black and brown folks, especially a lot of Black folks throughout the state of Georgia. So I want to restore that. Number two, I want to create need-based aid in Georgia. Georgia is one of only 2 states in the country that does not provide need-based aid, the only one in the South, which means if you want to see your way to college, you better not have a C average. That should not be the choice. And for Black students in Georgia, Black students are the least likely to get hope and the most likely to lose hope. But if we had need-based aid, we could fill in the gap. That, when you tie that to what's happening on the federal level, creates new opportunity. But the way to pay for it is critical. And that is that I want to use that unrestricted money that we already have, but I also want to expand gaming in Georgia, sports betting and casinos. That would generate $350 million a year upwards in order to invest in that education. And since it is our people who are spending money in the lottery, but we are the least likely to see the benefit, let's make certain that if we're going to have gaming, that our people benefit from that process. And that's my plan as the next governor.
Yeah, I'm glad that we brought up education. Obviously, free technical schools and teaching people skills are very important. One of the things that are near and dear to me, and I'm glad you brought it up, was increasing the pay for teachers.
Yes.
Increasing the pay for teachers is the most important job in the world. Everybody was taught and everybody learned at some point throughout their life. They definitely went to school. So can you talk about that? Because I know that was one of the things that you've been talking about throughout your campaign, increasing the pay for teachers, but also lowering the cost for healthcare for over 500,000 Georgians. Can you talk about how we get to that point?
Absolutely. So in Georgia, we pay teachers who are starting out less than they make in Mississippi. Now, I grew up in Mississippi. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That Mississippi can afford to pay more, but Georgia can't. My opponent, the current governor, has said that he gave them $5,000 over 4 years, and that's enough. I will tell you, it's not enough, because in real dollar terms, teachers today make less money than they made 20 years ago. So the purchasing power of that dollar is less. I want to right size their salaries by making sure that the starting salary in Georgia by the end of my term is $50,000. And at the same time, I want to increase pay for all educators by an average of $11,000. That means that we really truly create a meaningful change in their wages that is sustainable. I also want to make certain we're giving similar pay raises, although it's got to be done a little differently because they're paid by the school district and not by the state. But we need to increase pay for paraprofessionals, for school bus drivers, for cafeteria workers. You shouldn't work to educate our children and still be in poverty. That doesn't make any sense. And it is a solvable problem. At the same time, we know the other biggest driver of economic need and economic paucity in Georgia, and the best way to financial freedom is having insurance. Right now, health insurance is being denied to people who are making $9 an hour or less. And when you are starting your own small business, you probably can't afford health insurance for yourself, let alone for your employees. Well, in Georgia, we are forfeiting $3.5 billion every year that we've already paid for, but that the governor refuses to bring to the state. If we expand Medicaid, working people who make too much money to qualify for regular Medicaid, because for regular Medicaid, you got to be not only completely broke, but you also have to have a dependent or be disabled or be a senior, or you have to be able to buy into the Affordable Care Act, buy into Obamacare, and you have to make not a lot, but a lot more money than those making $9 an hour do. I want to get that population. Those are our students who are finishing college, but they aren't on their parents' insurance, and they need insurance. And if we ever thought that you didn't need insurance if you were young, let's think about COVID. Let's think about monkeypox. But I also want those folks who are starting their business, who want to quit their job but can't afford to leave because they can't afford to lose their health insurance. And so their dreams die because they can't afford to go. If we expand Medicaid, we can do all of that. And we can pay for both of these things. Medicaid is $297 million a year. And to overall do the salary increases is $400 million. We have a $5 billion surplus in Georgia. Once we paid every bill, once we have put money into our savings account, 15%, once we've accounted for growth in population, we have $5 to $6 billion just sitting there. My opponent says that he wants to do tax cuts. What he means is he wants to give tax breaks to the wealthiest Georgians, because the average Georgian will see $193. The wealthiest Georgians will see $10,000 or more. I want to instead pay our teachers, pay for health care, save the Atlanta Medical Center, keep doctors in our state, invest in small businesses,